Hey, while we're waiting, I have a quick question. Mike or Becky or Kat, do you know what the minimum wage is for waiters and waitresses in restaurants? The base wage, not the total with tips, but
I do not, Fred, but I could probably find out pretty quickly.
oh, I can call Tina after we're done here and Tina
But
Todd or somebody.
okay.
Looks like it's oh, 898, I think, for Colorado.
It's what, Kat?
898.
898?
Yeah. Federally, it's 213, but in Colorado, it looks like it's 898 for tipped employees.
Yeah, without tips, the base.
Yeah, and that's as of January 2020.
Okay, I'll use that. I was going to put together an example in my little cash flow model of a restaurant that had to close up, and then how to apply the PPP and the economic injury loans to them, and with the deferrals of repayments and so on, just to show the month by month cash planning. I want to use a restaurant as an example.
All right, so it is 9 o'clock and we are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Becky Douthat. I'm the admin assistant at the Larimer SBDC, and I will be moderating this a little bit. So we would ask that everyone be sure and mute themselves so that way there's not a lot of background noise. Also, if you have any questions, you probably want to listen to what Mike and Kat have to say first. They're going to cover a lot of information, but if you have any questions, please drop it in the chat, and then I will go through those and ask those as they come up. And then one other quick thing, if you would not mind typing your name in the chat room as well, that way we can collect attendance for this webinar, I would truly appreciate it. So without further ado, Kat and Mike, I turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Becky. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on this call. My name is Mike O'Connell. I'm the Center Director for the Larimer Small Business Development Center. I wanted to talk today just about the status of these programs as it relates to the small business owner. You've probably read a ton of information about the SBA EIDL, or Economic Injury Disaster Loans, and also the PPP, Payroll Protection Plan loans. I'm going to talk in overview terms just about those quickly, how it relates to the business owner, and then we want to leave time for some questions. And I'm going to say, first of all, that I need to drop off this call about 9:30 because I need to get on a Loveland Chamber call, but there's questions that come up. Kat and Amy from the library will certainly field those, and we'll get back to you with questions. So what I'm going to start with is what we do at the SBDC is one-on-one consulting. We do a lot of classes. Everything we're doing is really oriented right now about support for businesses that are impacted by the COVID virus, whether it's whatever you can do for alternate revenue, but particularly the assistance that we can give on the loan programs that I just mentioned. One of the first things in our structure or help that we're trying to do is when we talk to the business person, we're saying, maybe you're paying rent. You should be talking to your landlord about getting a reduction in the rent or deferral of the rent, whatever you can negotiate. And not saying it's going to be guaranteed because they all are going to react differently to it, but that's a negotiation you should proactively have. The second part is if you have a bank loan, you should be talking to your banker about, can that be deferred? What program do you have to help me out with that? And then also many of you have people issues, which are a pretty complicated transaction that's going on right now between the unemployment programs that are out there for employees and also what you might choose to do as a business owner in the PPP program. So the first thing I'm going to when we're talking to the business person, after you've done those negotiations that I've mentioned, you found out, hey, I can get some help on this, I can get some help on that. Try to work up a monthly budget. You know, what is it going to cost you to operate? expense-wise at a bare minimum for a 30-day period. And then if you multiply that times 3, that's probably going to give you a 90-day number that you're going to need to generate for some cash. And for many of us, that's going to be a patchwork of multiple financing sources. It may not be one source. So that is kind of our overall strategy that we're talking about with people that are going through this. The first program I'm going to talk about is the SBA EIDL loan. We do recommend that the business owner apply for that. There were some initial problems with the SBA application. It was changed on March 30th. It's a 10 or 15-minute process to apply, and you can get up to a $10,000 advance, which is really a grant because it's going to be forgiven as long as you use it for allowable expenses. So that's a pretty important part that we do encourage people to apply for. And it's based off of the number of employees that you have. You'll get reimbursed up to $1,000 per employee, up to $10,000. So that is basically, I'm not going to call it free money, but it's money that you're not going to have to pay in the long run. And then there's going to be a loan component of that. Originally, it was said that was going to be up to $2 million cap. That has changed because the SBA is overwhelmed with the number of applications that they have. So it's going to be something pretty substantially less than $2 million. The SBA is still working out guidance on what that's going to be. We've heard about people getting $25,000, $70,000, $50,000 loans, but it's going to be somewhere obviously less than $2 million. So that's the economic injury part. Payroll protection plan came out as a result of the CARES Act. That came out slightly later than the EIDL loan. That portion is run not through the SBA, but it's run through the private sector banking system. Any 7A lender can do the PPP loans, but there's far more businesses that are applying for this than there traditionally have been bankers to manage it. And because it's so new, there's also some confusion between the SBA and the banks about is there a comfort level so that the banks can actually distribute the money? So that money is starting to flow. People are getting PPP loans now, so that's underway, but it really points up the importance of having a relationship with your banker, knowing what they're willing to do for you there. And some businesses have had to hunt for a lender that will accept their PPP application. And I know on our website and a couple of other different websites, there are also links that we have that show the SBA lenders that are approved to do those loans, because that is changing. The SBA is working pretty hard to get more lenders into the mix, to get more people to lend out the money. So that's a pretty important ongoing part to that. The last thing that I wanted to mention related to the CARES program is that if you currently have, before COVID, a 7A loan, you should get 6 months of forgiveness and automatic payment for that loan, both principal and interest, from your banker. And the wording is that the banker is supposed to reach out to you proactively, automatically, to let you know you've got 6 months of that loan prepaid. So that's called the debt relief part of the CARES Act. So you're aware of that. And the last thing I wanted to mention before I turn it over to Kat is that it's really important for these programs that you keep good records of how you spend the money, because most of the loan forgiveness part that we've read about with this, it's going to be done through a reimbursement process. In other words, if you use the money through your EIDL loan to pay for rent, maybe use it to pay interest on some loans, the way that's going to get reimbursed to you is you're going to turn in invoices showing that, yes, you've got bills for that, and here's the amount, and then you're going to need to show a proof of payment. Maybe that's a bank statement, and someone either at the bank or the SBA is going to look at that and say, yes, you got this bill. Yes, you paid it. So I'm going to forgive the loan by this amount, or give you a check for that amount. You're just not going to get a check with some amount on it that you can spend how you wish. So that's largely how that process works. We know that from the flood recovery work we did in Estes Park 5 or 6 years ago, when that was declared a disaster area, and we saw how the SBA operated with that. So I know there's some questions on the chat, and before we jump on those, Kat, I'm going to turn it over to you, and why don't you cover anything I might have missed or anything from your standpoint as well.
Yeah, so Kat Rico, I'm the director for the Loveland Business Development Center. We work extremely closely with the Larimer SBDC and provide pretty much identical services in terms of consulting classes and resource connection. And we're definitely working overtime right now to make sure we're supporting our businesses with disaster recovery efforts. A couple of things that weren't on Mike's list there that I just made a quick note of, along with all of the financial assistance in terms of PPP and EIDL and things like that. There are also a lot of tax deferrals that are rolling out through the various cities and counties. So I'd strongly recommend that you guys keep an eye on that, because that can be another way to keep just a little bit more cash in your pocket as a business owner right now. You can find a pretty comprehensive list of that information on nocorecovers.com. They're keeping, that's a new website that's been stood up by all of our economic development partners. And we're keeping that very up to date with current information on everything from public health, personal assistance, business assistance. And there is a whole section on there, I believe, for tax information. So if your city or county is doing something special for business taxes, there should be information on there, and that's a good, reliable source. So again, that's nocorecovers.com. That's, I think, the only thing that I would recommend other than what Mike was talking there.
Great. So there are, yeah, like Mike said, a couple of questions coming in. Would you give an explanation for the calculation in determining the loan amount for the PPP loan? When I entered the figures and followed the monthly payroll times 2.5, it calculated loan amount for you and came up with a much larger amount than what I came up with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense as far as how you did the calculation, Linda. I don't have a good answer for why I would be coming up with a bigger number, because it sounds like you did it correctly. I mean, I don't know if you use QuickBooks, but you obviously have a payroll system, and it's based off of your average monthly payroll over the prior 12 months. So you look at that, you work up an average, and that might be quite different if you're a seasonal business where maybe you've got a lot more people in the summer than in winter months. But if you're a non-seasonal business and that's a relatively predictable number, boom, you've got a monthly average. You multiply that times 2.5 and there's your number. If you're paying yourself as an owner, owners do count, so you should count yourself in that calculation. And maybe there's other owners, but if you're paying yourself salary, that's in the calculation. And you said it calculated that for you automatically, huh?
It does.
I have a quick question. Besides actual payroll, gross pay, does the calculation include the related payroll overhead type expenses like health insurance premiums and the employer's share of FICA and Medicare?
Yes, it does, Fred. Health insurance is in there. It's meant to be an overall compensation part. So
okay. Maybe a couple of line items on somebody's QuickBooks P&L to take a look at to include in that calculation.
Okay. And that's a good point.
Okay.
I followed the exact, formula. And then when the loan amount, it calculates it for you. You don't enter the what, and I can understand they want to make sure people are doing the calculations right. And then there was a spot where you have to match that or you can't go forward. So I just put what they calculated, but it was I was wondering, are they looking at maybe 2 months of payroll or? 3 months?
No, they're
Higher than what I came up with.
okay. I believe the calculation isn't correct, you should have the ability to at least have that dialogue with the bank that is working with you on processing the loan. Have you done that, or otherwise I would recommend that would probably be the next step, because you could say, hey, we don't see how you're coming up with this number.
All I've been able to do so far is complete the application and send it. I haven't heard back anything. Sorry for my dog. Anything back from the bank yet.
Okay.
The other thing I might mention that I don't know if anybody hasn't gotten through yet, but I tried for weeks, frequently throughout the day to apply. The structure of my business is, it really is owned by two other entities, two businesses. And that's how I was trying to apply, where you'd be putting your EIN instead of Social Security. I could never get through. And so one day I just tried to apply as two individuals, and that's how I got through. Feeling like I'm not really putting accurate information, but that was the only way I could get through. I don't know if anybody else has had that trouble.
Okay.
And I'm doing with Chase Bank, but
Okay.
that's how I was able to apply.
Can I just say something real quick about, because I'm really far into the process. And so my PPP loan was approved, and I feel like I put in too high of a number. But the process is, and I haven't talked to anyone, and now they're like, your loan documents are ready. So I don't know, it looks like I just, follow through and don't talk with the person, and my loan is completed. So I don't know that there's an opportunity to change the numbers.
Okay. And I do know that once you get approval for the PPP loan, there is an SBA rule that you've got like 10 days, or the bank has 10 days to from the time it gets approved to distribute the money. So that's putting, we're hearing about clients that are getting calls saying, hey, you got to close this in 4 days, you got to close it in 3 days. So it's moving really fast, and it's primarily due to that SBA rule about the time frame to close it. But it's varying wildly by bank, depending on who your bank is. So just to make sure I finished with Linda, Linda, we might have a separate discussion about that and just see, what is your bank saying? Did I hear you correctly that you have an additional business?
I have a LLC that's owned by two corporations, two S corps.
Okay.
So the question asked,
Sorry, Linda, you froze up here. So we're definitely going to come back to you, but you might want to try reconnecting.
Okay.
Okay. So while Linda's getting reconnected, the rules for qualifying for loan forgiveness on the PPP loans.
Yeah, I'll take that one. So for the forgiveness on the PPP loans, again, the number one thing to remember is document whatever you're using it for. It does have to be used for 75%. Has to go towards payroll expenses, whether that's bringing someone back on the payroll that maybe you've laid off recently, or you're still paying someone and then you're going to switch over to using PPP funds to pay them. You can use up to 25% of it for, rent, utilities, that kind of thing, and it can still be forgiven. But again, as Mike said, our experience has been that you have to have everything very well documented, invoices, things like that, in order for that forgiveness to actually take effect. Does that answer your question?
No.
Oh, okay.
I know that part, but like, what's the time frame? What if the governor says retail businesses, not essential, can't be open in May? And now this is supposed to cover 2 months of payroll through June 30th. And so, like I said, I already got approved for this big loan, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to bring my employees back and I'm not going to pay them if my business isn't open.
Right.
I have all these overhead costs, so I've taken out a loan to pay them, but I have no revenue coming in. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep.
So that's the conundrum, you know?
Yeah, and I do not have an easy answer for that. You know, the SBA's under a lot of pressure to get the money out, and they're trying to do that, but it is conflicting with some loans, with some stay-at-home and shutdown orders. So you might look at other options to use the the PPP. You might decide that PPP isn't the right thing to take now, but it's not something I have a great answer for as far as what you should do for that situation. I understand the problem, but there isn't a good regulatory solution for it.
Yeah.
So basically, you have to bring the employees back for the month of May and June.
Right.
So you only bring them back in June, and you pay their payroll in June, and it's less. It ends up being less than the amount of money you borrowed. Can you just pay back the portion that you didn't use, like pay it back right away, and then still get loan forgiveness for payroll for just June?
If you do that, according to the way the program is now, it's going to decrease the amount you get forgiven, because what they want to see is, boom, you're at the whole employee number for that 8-week period. So that is, you might get part of it forgiven. You still get a loan at 1%, but you're not going to get it forgiven if you don't have employees back in place for that 8-week period, according to the way it's written now.
Okay, so you're saying if you don't have all the employees back for an
8-week period,
there's like no loan forgiveness whatsoever?
It's
all or nothing, or
no, it's
partial forgiveness.
It's partial. It's going to be staggered, but we don't have any guidance on what that staggered part is yet.
Okay.
But there's some wording in there that talks about, you know, if you aren't at staffing levels according to where you were pre-corona, it's going to decrease the amount of forgiveness that you get. So it's partial, to your comment.
And so, but we would have to bring them back for the full 2 months, like May and June, in order to get full forgiveness.
Yes.
Oh, just 1 second. I have somebody with me that's asking.
And, you know, we could also, I don't know if we've had a separate.
Oh, I'm sorry. So do the 8 weeks start on the date that you get the loan?
The day you get the money. Yes, that's when the clock starts.
The 8 weeks start then. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And what date is that?
So the date you get the money is the date you sign off on the loan, or just
that's gonna be a case-by-case banker getting the money.
So then the clock starts ticking then. So it doesn't really have to do with June 30th.
Yep.
It's really the loan date. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can the idle funds be also used for payroll after the 8 weeks of the PPP loan are used?
Yes, they can. Idle can be used for any of the eligible expenses, which are generally all working capital expenses, rent, payroll. So you can use idle for payroll. PPP is more limited. If you want to get the full forgiveness, you have to use at least 75% of that for payroll. On the top level view, it's designed to keep people employed in the business. So that's, the idle can be used to pay payroll. Yes.
Okay, perfect. And Kelsey, did that answer your question? Or so Kelsey asked, okay,
so
perfect.
All of the employees back that pre-COVID, that number of employees?
So Kelsey's question was, I let 75% of my part-time staff go. Do I have to rehire everyone prior to applying for the PPP?
So I do.
No, you can apply for PPP, but when you get the money, the expectation is that you're going to have those people back in place. You've got to bring them back and have them in place in May and June if you want to get the full forgiveness. And we can help with that in a one-on-one session for anybody here. I mean, that's if you want to talk more in detail about your particular situation. But yes, the expectation is you would be at the same payroll level that you were pre-COVID. That's what the full forgiveness of the PPP program is designed to do.
Okay, and does that mean that that it's kind of rationed out to each employee in the same way, or can I have some people working way less and some people working way more than previous, as long as it's the same amount-ish?
Yeah, that's the key thing. They're going to look and try to get some verification that you're at about the same dollar payroll level that you were. I don't think anybody's going to get in and check and say, well, you're paying this person a little less, this person a little more. They're trying to look at the overall payroll level and say, is that about where it was pre-COVID? So,
okay.
You know, how you engage the employee, I think, is a little more up to you as a business owner. So,
okay, great. Yeah, that answers it.
All right, folks, I'm sorry, I have to drop off, but I will leave it up to Kat and Amy, and we are here to do one-on-one consulting for anybody that needs further help too. So,
thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Mike.
Yeah, so I noticed that we do have several more pretty specific questions in the chat, and I want to make sure that you're all heard. So what I would recommend to each of you that have questions, I know that was kind of a short question and answer session, is that you sign up for consulting if you haven't done so already. We can get you with an individual disaster resource specialist that will help address your specific situations. Because I see some questions about like independent contractors and things like that, and that can get kind of funky to answer in this group environment because it's like it's always the same except when it's not. So if you want to set up consulting, again, it's free. You can do it either through larimersbdc.org or lovelandbusiness.com, and we'll get you matched up with one of our disaster resource specialists. So right now, we're gonna kind of shift gears. What we're gonna do is we're gonna actually do a community listening session. We have got Amy Phillips and Beth Gumenstead from the Loveland Library who are gonna help us host a community listening session. So what we wanna do is we just wanna hear kind of what's going on in your world right now as a business owner, not necessarily specific questions about programs and things like that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it over to Amy so that she can kind of guide us through these questions. We would love it. So I'm going to dump the first question as soon as she asks it into the chat. And if you can record your messages in the chat, that way, you know, we're not all trying to speak at once and everything, and we can kind of address the different pieces of this as Amy talks through it. So, Amy, I'll let you take it away.
All right. I want to give a little bit of background to what we're doing. In 2019 and early 2020, the library hosted and have facilitated a series of what we call aspirations exercises. And this is, what are your aspirations? And originally we asked, what are your aspirations for the Loveland community? Last December, we did, what are your aspirations for safety around the Loveland community? And today we're gonna ask, what are your aspirations for small businesses in the area once you can resume operations after the shutdown and things. So this is more kind of creative, out of the box thinking than necessarily a question and answer thing. So I do want to go over some of the kind of what we have conversation rules, and it's kind of more of a kitchen table conversation. There are no right or wrong answers to this. And one is to keep an open mind on things. So if Kat can do the first question into there. And I will also ask people if they want to talk to raise their hands, and I have the screen up and I can take a look at that, and then I can call on you as well. But the other thing is, if you can put your responses into the chat, what I'm going to do is ask for a copy of the chat. I will take all of the responses and kind of look for themes that come out. And then I will get that to Kat and Michael, and they can see what's going on as well. So the first question is literally, what are your aspirations for the local small business community when things resume? So, and if you want to take a minute to think about that, and then, like I said, you can put your information in the chat, and I will also take a couple of responses as well if you want to raise your hand, and you can do that by clicking on participants, and at the bottom of the participant list is, I believe, raise your hand, or if you click on the three buttons to the right, it will also give you raise the hands as well. So, and like I said, so what are your aspirations for the local small business community when things resume?
And just a heads up, everyone, this is the first time we're trying to do this kind of a listening session virtually. So, you know, be patient with us as we're figuring out all the tech side of these things to make it work right. But we really want to hear what you're looking forward to for the future.
This is EWHQ laptop. Oh, did you want people to talk?
Yeah, if you can, like I said, raise your hand either physically or, like I said, you can click on the, if you click on participants towards the bottom, it will say invite, mute me, and there's also three buttons, and sometimes you can see the hand raised as well.
Okay, well, basically, our aspiration is that we're still in business, period. We have forced closures right now. And this PPP that's looking like it may or may not be able to accomplish anything. We're a seasonal business up in Estes Park. We run all year round, but we actually take money out of our personal accounts to pay payroll during the winter. So we are already in the hole tens of thousands of dollars by paying our employees during winter because we have very little revenue during the winter. And so our only aspiration is to be in business, period, other than going out of business because the PPP is not actually helping us cover the expenses that we need to cover to stay in business. Unemployment insurance should be covering employees, and we were hoping that that would be the model. The businesses like ours, we need capital. We need to buy inventory. We need to pay rent. We need to pay utilities. We need to pay taxes. We need to do all those things in order to not physically close and have no jobs for employees down the road. So that's our only aspiration, is to somehow stay in business, period.
Great, thank you for letting that know. And the aspirations can be general as well. It doesn't, and then the next question will ask about challenges and also support, and the third question will ask about what you need. So again, these are kind of listening exercises. And like I said, thank you for all of that. I have Beth, who is also working on doing some recording. But again, you know, what are your aspirations for the business community when we return, when you can resume operations?
So I'd like to throw one out there. One of the aspirations I'd like to see for our business community is that our small businesses come out of this more agile, more able to adapt to different situations, because this has kind of thrown everyone for a loop, right? So let's make sure that everyone comes out of this more agile and more able to kind of face these odd challenges that, you know, business owners always have something weird thrown at them, but this is definitely one of the weirder things. So if they're more capable of adapting, I think that would be great for our business community, whether you're in Fort Collins, Loveland, Estes Park, doesn't matter. I think everyone can learn some good lessons from this.
Thank you, Kat. does somebody else have an aspiration for the business community that?
Like AJ Goldsmith.
Yeah, I was curious if you guys have had any calls or received any information on what it looks like. I don't know if it's an aspiration, so I apologize if I'm missing the beat here, but what to expect, what type of bounce back to expect, when people are able to go back to living life normally, whether it be, early May or June, July, or whatever. What type of activity do you expect? Do you think it'll be, have you guys received any information or heard anything in terms of, what expectations might look like if we'll have full foot traffic, if we'll have to completely revamp, how that all looks? I just didn't know if you guys had heard anything on that. That's one of the questions we're getting a lot from our clients, and just didn't know if you guys had any info on that.
So I'm going to have that question forwarded to Kat, but one of the things that I'm hearing from what you just said is you would like to have, one of the aspirations is having more information about what things will look like when foot traffic returns and everything else. Is that a good aspiration for this exercise? Is data and information on and forecasting on that?
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So
Amy, I'm one of the 40 plus consultants for the Larimer SBDC and Loveland Business Development Center. As Kat said earlier, we are available to help clients free of charge in a number of areas. So my area being financial planning and cash flow planning. My aspiration then would be to continue helping clients in Northern Colorado after things resume, not only to help them plan and properly use their PPP and their economic injury loans as the intentions are, but also looking forward to do some strategic planning for the clients to help them regrow their businesses. They're going to start up at a lower level in most cases than where they were when everything came to a crushing halt. However, there still is a need to look beyond putting out the fires here, so to speak, and do a little bit of long-range planning. So that would be my aspiration, would be to continue to help our many clients, and there's 40 more consultants in the two offices that have experience and expertise in marketing, social media, website, HR, industry expertise. So again, anybody that's listening in on this, I would encourage you to call either of the two offices, tell them what your long-range needs are, and get set up for free consulting.
Thank you.
So Amy, there's a couple of comments in the chat section. One is having a resource to easily switch over business opportunities to a digital model for different types of businesses. And the other is, my hope is that our customers value small businesses and realize that purchasing with them is so very important.
Thank you. Any other aspirations for the small business community? Before we move on to the next question, which I think might be a little easier for you guys to answer, but again, this is something to think about. Aspiration, another one jumped into the box, is the aspiration, the ability to work together to keep our community strong and viable with little or no input or help from the federal government. Thank you for that. Any other aspirations for the small business community?
And what I'll do, since this is kind of just an off the cuff kind of thing, is after this session is over, I'll make sure that we also send an email that has these questions, and that way, if something comes to you after the fact, we can still get that information to Amy and Beth so that they can help kind of compile it for us, so that it can help Larimer and Loveland Business Development Centers with planning and stuff for the future. So
yes. And then the next question is, what are some of the challenges that you face in reaching your aspirations? So, what are some of the challenges that you're facing to reach the aspirations, to keep your employees employed, to get information about, foot traffic and planning for that, supporting the small business community, keeping the community strong, helping to let people know the importance of submitting the community and things. So again, what are some of the challenges that you might face in reaching the aspirations that you have for the small business community? And there were a couple other ones in the chat. I think it would be nice if business who show that they have savings accounts for their business that would allow them to operate their business for a few months in case of an emergency without having to take out loans might get a tax break every year, that they can prove that they have access to those funds. I hope everybody matters continued safety with creative solutions. I anticipate great support in the future. So thank you for the comments. One of the comments is, for desk chair, we're really concerned or interested in seeing what social gatherings will look like after this has lifted. We're heavily focused on community gatherings, learning together. I think this could potentially impact a lot of small businesses.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Betty.
So what are some of the challenges that you might be focused on or thinking about? So I've got keeping my independent contractors safe as they move around the community. Anything else that people can think of? One of the challenges is aspirations for the retail business in Estes once we're forced to close. When the retail businesses are lifted, will people still go on vacation and will they have money to spend? That is definitely a challenge. The likelihood that social distancing is going to continue. My business works similar to a restaurant in that people sit at a table. I'm worried about how many customers I'll be able to seat at once, and I'll have to take tables out or require reservations.
So I've got a challenge that I can kind of see in kind of rebuilding some of the community around our small businesses, is building up consumer trust again, because I think that a lot of people are going to be scared even once the stay-at-home orders are lifted and things do start to return to normal. So I think it's going to be a challenge for our small businesses to really communicate to their customers and their clients that, hey, you're safe if you come to my business.
Thank you, Kat. What might a challenge is instruction and supplies for cleaning. We can't get hand sanitizers, so definitely PPP issues. What might be another challenge that people are facing to have for when things resume? So a challenge is that students don't always value virtual learning as much as they do in person. Thank you. Biggest challenge is the possibility of having no retail customers in stores. Thank you. So one is my business's medical massage that is out of state, even when we're allowed to open. Challenges how to open safely since we provide direct contact with patients. And then the other one is that people will not feel comfortable going out to shop and eat and how long that will last. Right. Give everybody a few more minutes to think, and then we can also go on to our next question. And the next question is, you can provide us with out of the box thinking, you can provide us with practical thinking, whatever you need. So somebody else commented, my business relies heavily on booking large gatherings such as family nights with the public school. I'm not sure what that's going to look like come fall. I would normally be contacting PTAs this fall about the booking for fall and Christmas, and having time and resources and marketing tools to innovate business so that they can run on a digital platform. So, which I think that comment leads great into our next question, which is, what are some of the forms of support that will be needed to help overcome these challenges? So what are some of the forms of support that will be needed to help overcome these challenges?
Well, again, obviously the many disciplines that are available free of charge through the SBDC and the Loveland Business Development Center are all available to help overcome these challenges, again, depending on what they are.
Thank you. So one person said, I'll need help from my landlord. Thank you. My hope is more businesses will reach out to their SBDC more. So many have never participated in the past. So definitely. One question was, what will SBDC classes look like? And there'll be more Zoom classes or something? And I'm sure Kat and Michael can get information out about that. One is how to market your business on a digital platform, Facebook, Google, Instagram, email marketing for successful business engagement. Thank you.
Natalie, can I just say real fast, reach out to the SBDC. We've got some amazing marketing consultants. Amy Alcorn is our Facebook guru. She can answer all things Facebook and Instagram. And we have other consultants that can help with that. For anybody right now, that's going to be huge, is that digital marketing, getting your name out there again, getting your presence out there again. If you have any questions on that, again, give us a call and we'd love to get you scheduled with someone.
So I see one, Amy, that you may have missed. There's information from the county and state about what the new normal is going to look like. I know that they can't exactly predict it, but as soon as they can tell something, please release it. Yeah, and I can kind of address that. you know, sometimes we find out a whole whopping 30 minutes before some of these changes are announced in press releases. So we do our best to get that information out as quickly as possible. I would recommend that you really keep an eye on what's going on NOCO Recovers, because if anyone's going to have that information, I bet they would have it sooner than most.
So, and also, you know, what support might need to come from the city, from the state, from other organizations in the city who might be there to support things. So, you know, what are some good, what might be support or that you'll need from all aspects of the community as well. So, and thank you, Betty, for the information about the social distancing. So
I would encourage you, as well as you're thinking about, you know, some of the forms of support to overcome these challenges, is to think about your local business owners. How can you support each other? Are there some ideas that maybe you can generate there, you know, for that more out of the box thinking?
So so definitely, you know, like I said, there's a lot of information here about getting in touch with Amy about social media. One person also said that digital approaches don't always work for retail, restaurants, movie theaters, or massage parlors. You know, again, what type of support could we use for people who don't necessarily aren't able to go online and things? Grant programs from the city would appreciate it. I know some larger cities are offering it.
Amy, I found in working with clients planning their cash flows, usually they have more than one revenue stream in their business. For example, a massage, licensed massage business might also be teaching over the internet to people on how to help with physical pains or things that they might otherwise help them in person. But sometimes there may be revenue streams in addition to the primary one that need to be folded into the business. It's not totally digital, but sometimes it's semi-digital or can be done remotely.
Thank you, Fred. And I know these are kind of tough questions that maybe it's shifting. So definitely, if you take time and come up with some suggestions and things and that you want to email them to Kat, Kat will also get them to me as well. And we're going to try to get something together so she can report back out at the next coffee one. But yes, and as we said, this is our kind of our first virtual attempt at this. So I thank everybody who's commented and participated and even have started to think about these questions. And I know there's a lot on your mind. You know, when I came in, that there was questions about the grants and about the EIDL loans and everything else. You know, all of those things. So I thank you guys for taking your time and helping to participate with this and everything. And, you know, again, whatever, you know, you need in the way of support. And like I said, it can be from the community, it can be from state funds. You know, I one of the comments earlier was about not having, you know, what happens when we don't have support from the federal government. So how as we in the Northern Colorado area come together as a community to help support small businesses and things. So definitely. So again, any other ideas that you might have for forms of support that can help you overcome some of these challenges, you know, whether it's marketing, whether it's getting foot traffic back into your business, working with, you know, how do you do some of the things virtually? How do you do some things in person? All of the things that I've been hearing in the chat and also online as well. So.
Thank you very much, Amy. We really appreciate you and Beth coming on today, giving us a lot to think about, and also looking into some of the questions that were asked and getting those to us so that we can reach out to clients and give them some answers and some feedback as well. We truly appreciate it. Thank you for your time today.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you. And like I said, I know there's a lot on everybody's minds, so I thank you for taking the time and participating in this. And I want to honor all the work that you guys have been doing, and also know that along with the SBDC and the LBDC, that the libraries in the areas are here to support you. And you can always send us at the Loveland Public Library an email through reference@loveland.org. We do check that daily. So we are here for whatever you can do. So thank you all very much. And like I said, I honor all the work that you guys are doing and everything that you're working through at this point in time.
Thank you all. I did add those questions one more time in the chat, and we'll try and send those out so that we can get some more responses as you have time to let those kind of sit in your head and bounce around a little bit. But again, thank you all for your participation today. We will be having another chat next Thursday. We'll have Adam Crow from the county that will be joining us, me and Mike. So we'll get some extra insight there. So maybe some of those questions about what's the plan about reopening might be able to be better answered next week when we have a little bit more clarity from the county level and as things kind of get closer to that stay-at-home lifting. So everyone have a great day. Thanks for joining us. Becky, do we have anything else we need to cover?
I don't think so. Stay warm out there. If you're anywhere near me, we've got tons of snow, so stay warm.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Have a great day. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Beth.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye, Fred.